He spills down with 6. Puck still loose. Nosek keeps it moving. The NHL's all-time win record now belongs to these Boston Bruins. They win their 63rd game of the season. 63, 12, and 5, and still 2 games on the schedule for the 22-23 Bruins.
Just remarkable.
"20 seconds remaining. The Golden Knights start to celebrate on their bench. The silver trophy to the Golden Knights.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Stanley Cup!
What the puck is going on?
All right, here we are. What the puck is going on? I am Dave Metzger, also known in the Deep End Broadcasting Studios as Nephew Dave. Alongside me, we have Uncle Steve. Steve, hockey's opening up tonight. It's back. How are you feeling?
Oh, man, here we are. Season 2 underway of What the Puck is going on, and 3 games today, a triple header. Game that starts in about an hour, and we have all season to break things down, Dave. It's going to be fun. Obviously, we'll be airing on Tuesday nights. This is a Wednesday since it is, or Tuesday night, right? This is Tuesday.
Yeah, we're on Tuesday.
Days mixed up already. But Tuesday nights is airtime. 5 o'clock will be the usual start time for What the Puck, as the heavy slate of games that we've scouted out, at least through the first 3 months of the season, tend to be on Tuesday nights. All right. So instead of doing a Monday where there's 1 or 2 games and, we might have some bad lines, we'll go ahead and hit on Tuesdays. That looks like the bulk of the slate. I think we'll vary off that schedule, I think once or something, Dave. I think there's a Wednesday that looks better down the road, but we'll get to that as we go through the season here. And here we are, man, off and running here, season 2 on the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Yeah, Steve, exciting stuff. We have some pretty good matchups tonight, too, I think. Nice little treat to open up a season. But, Steve, as we talked about a little bit before we dive into all the fun stuff we have to get to, let's give a shout-out and a well wishes to Barry Melrose, a longtime ESPN hockey analyst, as I believe he is fighting Parkinson's disease. Steve, can you remember, I remember as a kid watching games, some of them a little bit late at night, and you always heard him back when ESPN had hockey before it switched over to NBC and then back to ESPN again. I'm sure you remember him, correct, as, watching different games throughout the evening. And like I said, you always hear him.
Well, Dave, absolutely. Growing up, I was in tune to the NHL as I was all sports as a kid. And I absolutely remember. I remember him being on the bench, watching that live when they went out. And I think it was Marty McSorley stick with the old tape marker to see if the stick bent too much, and they took the stick, gave a penalty, threw him out of the game, and Melrose lost it on the bench. And that was a great Kings team too, with Wayne Gretzky, the great one, hanging on the wall here in the studio, actually, right above your usual spot when you're in here. And from there, he just took off. All the highlight shows on ESPN, I remember basically most of them from day one, but he was always funny. He was always a very good talker. Just seemed like a cool guy, the kind of guy that you would want to be around in the bar, talking hockey with. A wealth of knowledge. He always was able to drop a lot of science on you as far as the NHL. And honestly, quite frankly, if there's anyone who's been a personality who's kept me liking hockey so much, he's definitely one of them. We've always had our Capitals on the old home team sports, then later on Comcast, and then NBC Sports is what it is now, right? So
right. No, it's actually monumental now.
Yeah. So the old HTS that gave you the local feel of things, and then on the national level, you had ESPN2, which did a great job bringing hockey on the TV, especially like the late night West Coast games. And Barry Melrose was always a big part of that. And sad to see that he's going to go. He hasn't left us yet, but a long fight. And, obviously, when you get older and that age, Parkinson's, there's nothing good that's going to come out of it at the end of the day. We will remember Barry for absolutely being someone who has completely been one of the broadcasting best personalities of the NHL through my lifetime. Absolutely. Other guys who maybe put an imprint, Doc Emmerich, we can talk about him as a play-by-play guy. Sure. And then our heroes like Peter Bondra growing up and stuff like that. But Barry's on another level. He is without a doubt as good as any personality that's been out there in any sport. Pat Riley kind of comes to mind, I think maybe because of the hair and the mud flap that Barry sported. And Riley always had the crazy hair too. Pat Riley, the coach of the Lakers, and then now front office of the Miami Heat now. But he's maintained in the scene, and Barry's done great, and it's sad to see him take off. I'm sure we'll get a lot of good tributes through him as we go along. And shout out to the world too, Dave. The world's in a crazy place right now. We got people beheading babies and stuff like that. There's no shortage of assholes out there. You can put your politics where you want to, but when you got people chopping people's heads off, then that's a problem. So we'll move forward. We'll look for hockey tonight, and obviously we have all season long to see how this goes, and we'll get through everything, division odds, whatever. We'll go ahead and look at everything tonight.
Yeah, Steve, we're gonna jump into the games here since we only have 3 of them. But as we always do towards the end of the show, since we have only 3 games, we got that game in about an hour. We'll try to get you out of here for that. But we're going to talk future, Steve, because I think there's some angles to be had here. Maybe some surprises, maybe not. So we'll get into that here. But Steve, first broadcast of the NHL season. Let's jump right into it. We've got the Nashville Predators traveling to Tampa to take on the Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning over under 6.5 plus 130 for the Preds, minus 155 for the Lightning. So they are favored at home. A game that I think they'll win. You always want to get off to a good start. You got the home fans behind you for your first game. Minus 1.5 is a plus 145. It's something that I'm already kind of looking at. But, Steve, I want to note this real quick before I see what your take is on this. We have a weird goalie matchup. I do believe Vasilevsky is hurt, correct?
Yeah, he's out until December is what I'm seeing right now.
Right. So that means we have Jonas Johansson in goal for the Lightning. Woof. I don't know, Steve. Haven't heard much about him. And I usually try and do a good job of following a lot of this stuff because it is, my near and dear favorite sport. Love football, don't get me wrong, but, this is my jam, I guess you could say. UC Salt in goal for the Preds. And I'm going to tell you what, I like the goalie matchup for the Predators more. But Steve, can we see an over here? And what are your thoughts? Have you done any research? What do we got going?
A little bit of research on Tampa Bay for sure. My little insighted intel tells me that the Predators may have it rough this year. Now Saros is good, but they were kind of a mess defensively, and last year, and I'm not so sure they've solved that here. And you're actually getting numbers on alternate saves now. So this is like an added menu thing. Like, for example, the over-under for saves tonight for Saros is 30.5. But if you go to like the 34 saves, if you think Tampa Bay can pepper him a little bit, then you get 2-1. 40 saves is at like plus 680. And you can climb the ladder all the way up to 44 saves at 14-1. And he's had a 50 save game before. Saros has for Nashville.
Yeah.
So good goalie. What he has in front of him may be a little suspect. You're talking about a Tampa team who, for a good part of the season, didn't really get to play with a lot of their pieces. To be honest, I mean, they didn't have Nikita Kucherov for a good amount of the season, so he is back now. Braden Point still here. Stamkos is still around. Anthony Cirelli still around. So this is a veteran team for Tampa Bay. And we'll see how it has to play out. Obviously, they're a favorite at home. And you expect them to win, right, with the good crowd. So they should be able to defend ice here against Nashville. But here we go. It's game one, and we'll see. I will say that the interest or the addition of Nyquist, that'll be interesting for Nashville. He's been a player. He's been around, seasoned player, and maybe he can help solidify things there for now, maybe get a little bit more offense for him as well.
Right, Steve. So I'll tell you what, I would look at a Nikita Kucherov goal tonight at plus 170. When he scores, that place usually explodes. We've seen it, I don't know how many times, watching those games on the TV. That's one of their, front men there. That's a key piece of what they do. So for 170 for him to score tonight, I can get behind that price tag. So Steve, let me ask you before we move on.
And that's a good number because I see plus 155.
Oh, nice. So, and do you like anybody else down here to score? You got any kind of?
I'm gonna approach this season with caution. Me, Dave. It's not like I'm the best hockey gambler out there. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. I was actually do decent at it. I just don't do it enough, maybe. I kind of like to lay low, pick my spots. Here's our boy Connor Sherry. How about Connor Sherry at plus 370 as he has now moved on from the Capitals, and that's a good price for him. It's not like he doesn't score, but
no, he definitely certainly could.
And as he's playing now with the Lightning, so he's going to have his chances as well. So maybe a good number there if you want to take a shot.
And he does have a good shot too. So I can't remember if I think he's playing on the fourth line down there. But these days that doesn't seem to really mean too much, Steve. Those fourth line guys, so they might not get as much time as the top line guys, but they're still out there getting their chances for sure. So
heck, I mean, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Well, I was going to say this. I mean, I mentioned Nyquist before. If you want to have fun and root for this game and some goals tonight, then maybe take a Sherry and a Nyquist at a long shot because 5 will pay you $103 anyway, just for those two players to score, one from each team. The goal score is a little hard, Dave. Sometimes, there's so many guys who can score. That's for sure. So I mean, even a Victor Hedman at plus 550. Maybe if I'm taking a long shot, I'm going to look at that as well. Ryan McDonough, 16-1. I mean, there's a name too.
And these
so
are
there's
all
no
good
shortage
names,
there's no shortage of talent. Alexander Carrier as well. 17-1 for him. So we'll see, Dave. I'm not going to get overly invested this game. I'm going to pick my spot for a better one later tonight. But Carrier now with the Predators. As some of these players are just jumping around. That's the thing. I'm going to have to figure out a little bit more who's popped to these new teams and take it from there. Ryan McDonough, obviously, on the Lightning. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, we've had a good bit of movement, Steve, and we're gonna probably expect to have even more next year as the salary cap goes up. So, Steve, let's move on here. You said you were going to kind of save it on that game for a better one. Well, here you go. I think this is your one that you can fire on. I would expect a ton of goals. I'm just going to come out and kind of be aggressive with this one, Steve. I would expect a ton of goals here. We have the Chicago Blackhawks traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins. And if you remember, Steve, last year, the Blackhawks were actually the knife to the heart of the Penguins, as all they needed to do was win that game last year, and they were into the playoffs. They ended up losing. I believe the score wasn't pretty either, 4-2 or 5-2. I want to say. I'd have to double check on that. But Steve, we have the sensational rookie who, could be as good as Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard there with the Blackhawks. He's all the talk right now. Then you have the Penguins who are getting older, but they go out and they get Carlson from the Sharks, the big-time defender. What a move. Says that they're going to push. They think that their window is still open this year too, so they're going to make a push at it. And, they have offensive weapons here, Steve. Is 6.5 enough? I want to ask you that real quick.
And
this goalie
we
matchup
shall
does
see.
not
This is going to be we're not expecting everything that I've heard is that Chicago is going to be down a little bit here, but this is going to be a whole new team. They have 11 players who have departed. Like you said, they have Bedard, who they signed. Taylor Hall comes over from Boston. That should hopefully help him out. Let's see. I got a good list going now. Now, yes, the Penguins stock should be way up compared to what it was last year. But you got to remember, this was the game, too, that ended the season for the Penguins in an embarrassing fashion. It's not like they went out and in a blaze of glory. I mean, they went down bad and like a flaming crash, really, is what it was. But some good signings. Riley Smith as well from Vegas. He comes over for the Penguins. I mean, they took a pretty good facelift. They kept their good core of good players, and basically it seems like everyone surrounded them or around them has been changed out to someone else. But, like you said, good signing there. And, they got Lars Eller too, right?
They did, yeah.
Yep. So it'll be interesting for the Penguins. I think there's going to be a little bit of continuity that needs to happen here with these teams trying to get used to each other. So we shall see. I'm going to hold off on the over on this one tonight, try to get a better feel of it. But that's a big number for sure with Pittsburgh. I just think you need to be careful on it and don't throw your eggs in the Pittsburgh basket, people, because it's the first game of the season here. I would approach with caution. You hear all the time about teams that should be bad in sports to start the season, and Chicago's on that list right now. We need to see how things play out.
Yeah, Steve. So your goaltending matchup, and this is why I was kind of pushing for the over here. You have Peter Mrazek for Chicago and Tristan Jarry for the Penguins. Steve, I'll tell you what, those are two goaltenders that they don't excite me the most. I'll just say it that way. We know
Right.
Tristan can be good, but he had his struggles last year too. So, and Peter Mrazek he's a vet goaltender, and it's just someone that I've never been high on. Every team that I've seen him play for, he just tends up to give a lot of goals. You just from what I've watched. So that's my reasoning for going to the over here is anything with Mrazek, I just can't. I would expect for that to be a high flying game, honestly.
Yeah, good angle. Pick on the goalies a little bit here, potentially. And then as far as any kind of injuries go, Pittsburgh looks like they got a clean sheet for them and the Blackhawks as well. So no one listed as hurt for this one on either side. Let's see here. A couple late notes coming in actually, but no, all right, nothing to really report here for either side. So we'll move forward on the injury front. But yeah, I guess Dave, that's a good angle. If you want to pick on those goalies, Mrazek wasn't the greatest, was he? And Yari wasn't either. After having a promising start to his career, he's been anything but, really, to be honest. And maybe part of the reason why Pittsburgh hasn't succeeded here in the last season to be a playoff team. So good angle with the over, Dave. I think the continuity scares me a little bit. Maybe a little sloppiness on offense. But, again, we'll just have to play this out. If you want to go over, though, over 7.5 plus 186, and even to get to 9 goals, if you think this is going to be a bludgeoning of the goalies plus 290.
My initial thoughts here, Steve, are 5-3 Penguins. So that's kind of what we're thinking. I might even throw a Connor Bedard goal in there for an anytime goal scorer. Let's see what he does. Everybody's high on him for good reason too. I shouldn't.
I see 2-1. What do you have
for goal scorer?
Yeah, for Bedard.
I have plus 150.
Oh wow! So our numbers are different on both of the games.
Yep.
On either side. Okay, so it really takes some extra shopping as these books are really trying to pin some of these numbers down. How about Tyler
Johnson? A lot of these goal scoring numbers.
Tyler Johnson plus 310 isn't the worst. He's been a good goal scorer of the past. Maybe he had a little bit of a down year last year, but he had to deal with some injuries as well. But Tyler Johnson, as we know him famously from our Norfolk Admirals down here in Norfolk, he'll get it. He'll leaving Tampa Bay and now playing for the Blackhawks now in his second season. So maybe a plus 310. That might not be the worst one.
I'll tell you
Chicago's going to light it up a little bit.
Taylor Hall at plus 255 isn't bad either. He likes to get involved there around the net too.
Right. I see him at plus 290, and I think that's a good acquisition for Chicago. Bringing him over from Boston, he's played on a really good seasoned veteran team. That's what that team needs in Chicago is some sort of leadership and the go-to dependable dudes. And he has every chance to fill that role very well here for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, and you got to remember, Steve, the Blackhawks are rebuilding. So, yeah, they're not going to be the best team, but I think they went out and they did some pretty good work this season. Getting the guys that they did, and then, of course, the number 1 overall pick in Bedard. So maybe they're not going to be as bad as we think. We know that they're, not going to be good, but they are rebuilding. And that process takes a little time. So we'll give them some time to gel, but I think just to have some fun on opening night.
Taylor Hall just did have a baby too.
This is true. Yep.
All right, so that he could be all amped up from that here.
Noel Achari at plus 360, I think is sneaky as well. So there's all kinds of opportunities there on the goal scoring. I think we definitely see it in this game, Steve. All right, so let's get on to the next one. We have the Vegas Golden Knights, Stanley Cup champions, versus Seattle. It is in Vegas. So, Steve, let me ask you first. Stanley Cup champions, what do we expect from this? They're going to have the ceremony. It's going to, going to be a little emotional, blah, blah, blah. Seattle played very hard last year and made the playoffs. So what do we think here? We have the six. It looks like the 6.5 is going to be the trend again this year, which I hate. But these two teams could get there. So, Steve, I ask you, what do you think with Seattle traveling to Vegas? How do we see that shaking out?
Well, Seattle had a great season last year. They really, really did. They took out the Avalanche, right? Made a run at this and but came up short there in the West in the end. But they did very, very well. Let's see. And obviously they're going to be good again. And here's our boy Barakowski. He's back now too. He's 4-1 on my board and score, by the way, tonight, which is crazy.
Oh, wow. That's a great number.
Yeah. Yanni Gord plus 470. Here's the deal with this game in specific is I did see the Vegas Golden Knights at the Raiders game last night. So to what extent were they taking that Stanley Cup around and partying last night? Hopefully they hopefully they left right after halftime and went to bed. You know what I'm saying? But this is a team that probably went their separate ways a lot as well over the summer, and their times back together here have just been right here through training camp. And now they're starting to do all these little fun celebratory experiences like they did last night at the football game as they were featured there, lighting, I think, the flame out in the outfield, the Al Davis Eternity Flame, I think is what they call it. But if they're on their best behavior, I expect this to be a fun game. This is the funnest game of the night. And I'm actually going to trust the Golden Knights here to get the job done. But I just put them in my parlay with the baseball that I have going with the 2 playoff games. So I'm going to lean Orioles and lean Twins, and then I'm going to go ahead and take the straight money line with the Knights. And hopefully those 2 baseball games can pop it off for me and then make this a live hockey game. But if there's going to be a lot of goals scored too, Dave, and the Knights games were fun in the Stanley Cup just because there were so many goals. And we were right about that series going over, and the chance to have a ton of goals. So we were able to take advantage of that. The player props were paying well. I hit a couple of those along the way with goal scorers. So very profitable were the Vegas Knights. When I finally, and if you remember, Dave, I kind of tried to say, don't take them all season. Or not really. I tried to just fade against them because of the injuries and such. But they just ended up being the better team. And I did the old, if you can't beat them, join them scenario. And it paid off there at the end. But I'm going to just trust that they raise the banner tonight, get the win. But I think it's a scrappy win, and I think it's a high-scoring win as well. I could see 5-4. I could see this a 5-5 overtime Vegas win, even in a shootout maybe. But If that's the case, you have a ton of goal scorers. I feel like they're paying better this year than what they were last year. Eichel's plus 165, Mark Stone, who was phenomenal in the playoffs. All the guys were, but he plus 175 for him. Marcia Show plus 195. He managed to get into the back of the net a ton there. Eberle plus 360. Barbashev is plus 380. I mean, these are all guys that can score. And I love the Barakowski or Yanni Gord on behalf of the Kraken here at 4-1 or plus 470. So I'm gonna have to look at something maybe later with the player props.
And Chandler Stevenson at plus 300 would probably be a good one as well, Steve.
Yeah. I see him at plus 370. So there's some good numbers all over the place.
So your goaltending matchup is going to be Aiden Hill versus Philip Grubauer tonight. Steve, I know what I'm thinking. Who do you trust more in net?
I trust
I like
Hill
Philip
better than
Grubauer
Grubauer.
myself.
What's that?
I said I think I like Grubauer a little bit more.
Grubauer has been decent, for sure.
When he's on his game, he can be.
His alt save numbers. I mean, you're getting paid good. He's gonna see some shots tonight, and for him to have 33 saves is plus 370, 34 saves is plus 470, even 35 saves plus 560 for Grubauer. Aiden Hill, I think he's gonna see some shots as well, and all his numbers are good for saves, plus 370 for 33, plus 470 for 34. So I think you see a lot of goals. I think you see a lot of shots on net, and you'll get a lot of saves in the mix of that. So I think it's just a green light for everything.
The Vegas Golden Knights and the over pays out plus 215. I think that's a pretty good shot right there.
Yeah. That's not bad at all, right?
So I like that one. That might be something that I consider there when this game comes on. So, all right, Steve. Well, those are the games for opening night. Some entertaining stuff there, especially with the back two games. I still like the Tampa game. We'll see what happens there, but we might take some goal scoring. But, Steve, let's get into these futures a little bit. All right, let's see if you've done a little research, Steve. We'll start off with the Stanley Cup winners this year. Who are you thinking right here as we get the season started?
To pick a Stanley Cup winner this year. And it's interesting. It's interesting to see that Vegas is like the sixth shot here. But it's interesting to see Boston. Look at this. Boston down to 17-1. They still have a good team, too. So the Bruins at 17-1 are a good price. I don't know if I'm going to predict the actual champion at this point, Dave. If I'm going to have a gun put to my head, I'm going to take a shot at Edmonton at 10-1.
Yeah,
that's a team that thought that they had what they needed there at the end. But again, just a little bit lackluster on defense, a little bit of goaltending missing. They have all the star power, best power play. They can at least get the most points, I think, maybe. If not win the Stanley Cup, I think they can rack up the most points of the season. So Edmonton would be my one team that I would give a shot to. I think Canadian team is definitely due at this point to win. So they could be one of them. There's going to be some good teams, though. This is going to be very, very hard to try to pick one. And you're getting a lot of good numbers right out of the gate on some of these teams. Even a Toronto at 11-1, they've restacked themselves. You think the Brewers are down a little bit. They're going to be good, 17-1. They're the Rangers floating around at 17-1. Interesting to see the Devils down to 11-1, but they had a good offseason as well. picking up players. So again, I think it's wide open, Dave. I think you can almost take 12, 13, 14 teams to give them a shot to win this thing right now.
Yeah, Steve, I would have to agree with you there. I was going to go Edmonton myself. So here's what I'm thinking, Steve. For the Western Conference final matchup, I'm thinking it's going to be Edmonton and Dallas. What do you think about that?
Yeah. If that's how they get seeded and they can make it through for there, why not? The Stars were great. The Stars were great for me until they ran into Vegas, is what happened. That's when I jumped on Vegas, is once the Stars went down. But the Stars did great for me in the playoffs as well. So it'd be hard for me to back down off of those guys, to be honest. They're going to be good again. And, yeah, I could see that for sure. Both of those teams getting up there. Again, it's going to be fun to watch all year long. This is going to be way more competitive than the NBA. Where the baseball divisions kind of like had some separation there at the end. I don't think you're going to see that in the NHL here. I think you're going to see it pretty tight. Even Boston with their hot start, they still were never able to really put everyone completely away until the end. They still had Toronto and right there behind them, about 10 points or so for the most part. So again, I think just a very, very competitive season. And Dallas has some, they're going to be good. They're just going to be good. And
I think so as well.
This is just so tough, Dave. It's a crap.
It really is.
What I would do now, honestly, is I would take some of these longer shots that you think that can win the West, like a Seattle at 20-1, even a Calgary at 16-1.
I like LA at 22-1 was kind of my dark horse for the West, even though it's not really a dark horse pick because they're slated to do pretty well, and I think they will too. And I think they have a shot to win the division.
You have them at 22-1 right now?
The LA Kings.
To win the West.
Yep. No, to win the cup.
Oh, right. Yeah, all right. So for the cup or the West, and I would look at this strategy, Dave, because we got good numbers all year round. And remember, too, the AL West, if you kind of did it right here, and I'm talking about baseball, with the Astros, the Mariners, and the Rangers, you got great numbers as these teams shifted spots in the top spot. So I would almost look at doing that again. You could take like Calgary and Seattle and maybe a Winnipeg at longer shots now at 16, 20, 20-1. Maybe even throw Minnesota in there at 10-1. But I'm going to guess that you might get better numbers at some point. Now, we never saw it with the Avalanche. They stayed favorites the whole time. And they're your favorite again right now, 4-1 to win the West. At least what I'm seeing. Edmonton 5-1, Vegas 6-1. But if Vegas does have a cold start, you could see their number dropping, and then that's a good time to grab them then. Basically, you kind of hope that the top tier teams maybe do go off a little sluggish. You get better numbers on them, and then you can invest and then have some sort of a free roll anyway. So that would be a strategy I look at. And the beautiful thing about this is these numbers stay up too, and they're not going to change too much. So if you see something you like here the next day or two, jump on it.
Yeah, Steve. So I'm thinking to win the West. Well, we talked about them winning the Cup, Edmonton. I have them at 5-1, somebody that I would take a shot at. And like I said, another one, the Kings at 11-1 to win the West. I'm not mad at that number either. So, Steve, let's talk a little bit about the East real quick. And then really maybe we'll talk some awards, but I think that's going to be about it for opening day. So, Steve, Eastern Conference, we have the Hurricanes plus 450, Maple Leafs plus 550, the Devils plus 550, and the Rangers at plus 750. Those are your top 4 favorites to win the East. I like the Hurricanes myself. I think they're built well. This is a team that's, built to go deep into the playoffs. So even though they are the heavy favorite, I think I'll kind of lean there. But before we jump into some longer shots that maybe we can take, I just gave you the top 4 favorites. Who do you like there in that top 4?
In the East, I'm actually going to still like Boston, to be honest. And they're not even in the top 4. But they're close enough at plus 850 from what I'm seeing to win the East.
Top 6.
Top 6, right. They still have the talent. They're not going to be down as bad as kind of like what they're portrayed to be, and probably a victim of this number, just the way that their season ended. Everyone thinks that you're overrated, as they were bounced fast by Florida. But if I had to lean somewhere else too, Dave, Toronto looks like they're going to be really, really good too. Max Domi comes over from Dallas, so veteran presence there for them. Maybe he can solidify that young pack of talent there. And I mean, I'm not going to discount the Rangers either at plus 850. Again, it is tough. It's just crazy in the sense that the Florida Panthers are your 8th favorite, and here they were just in the Stanley Cup, right? Just a few months ago, and here they are sitting at 11-1 here to win the East. But again, it's just going to be a war of attrition. Injuries going to play a part, and we'll just have to see. How about our Capitals at a long shot of 41-1, Dave? I mean,
yeah,
are they going to be that? Are they going to be bad again?
I don't think they're going to be that bad. They're not giving us any love this year. Just because we have some things that we have to go through. The roster is getting a couple young guys put into it. We have that aging core who I think can still get it done if these young guys can integrate and, bring a good new coach. He likes the young guys. He's a little bit of a younger guy himself as far as, coaches go. So there's just some things to kind of get figured out, and maybe they don't start off fast. But I mean, Steve, really, I could see them still making the playoffs. Now, how deep they go is the question. But I think that core, that's been there for years and that we've, been watching, can still get it done. I mean, we're not getting any love. I expected that. So, yeah, Steve, at 30-1 is what I have. You never know. I mean, crazier things can happen. So we'll see what the Capitals have. They play Friday night against Pittsburgh. So 7:30 p.m. in DC. So they get a home game to start the season. We'll definitely be tuned into that, Steve. That might be a CP's happy hour game. If maybe you'd like to join us, we'll see about that. But we'll keep an eye on them. And that number is probably going to stay the same mostly with them. If they start off real cold, they could even get a big number. But I'd like to think at some point in the season, before it's too late, obviously, that they start to gel and get things going. So, and here's another one I want to touch on, Steve, here in the East. Watch out for the Buffalo Sabres at 17.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dave, that's a team that might take another step this year, to be honest.
And they've been taking a step forward. Yeah, exactly.
They have the last couple of seasons. Maybe a mini step 2 seasons ago. A little bit bigger of a step last year, as they just were basically left out of the playoffs. Wherever they finished 9th or 10th, it wasn't too far off, and they were right there in the mix of things until the end. But yes, making the playoffs for them would be a great, great achievement this year. And once you get in, teams like Seattle approved that you can make noise once you get in there.
The teams like the Panthers, look what they did. Nobody thought they were going to do that last year, let alone beat, the best team record winning wise, that there was. I mean, they set that record last year and they were the juggernaut of the league, and they get bounced in the first round. So all you got to do is get in, Steve. And I think that this Buffalo team could certainly get in, like you've touched on. They seem to be taking a step every season, and this could be the season that they cash in and make the playoffs. With that being said, Steve, let's look at all right.
I'm looking through all these acquisitions, Dave. A lot of these teams have crazy player turnover.
There's some turnover this year.
I mean, you're talking about on the average like 10, 11, 12 roster spots a team. So there's going to be a lot of unfamiliarity out there. Really, literally, and maybe try to take advantage of some of these better numbers now. But Buffalo is one of the teams that seems to have the most continuity of players that they've signed back and players who are not coming back.
Right. So, and they're minus 120 over here for me to make the playoffs. So you can see that we're kind of on the right track here, I believe. So let's see there. They had that division conference 17-1. In their division, they were 9-1. So really good numbers on Buffalo. And if we expect them to take a step forward, Steve, I think they're a team that we should definitely be doing something with.
A team that you were expecting to take a step forward last year that looked good at times, but kind of fizzled for sure. I think injuries were a big part of that, if I recall, are the Detroit Red Wings. What are your thoughts of them this year?
So, Steve, I'm glad that you asked, because even though, you just said it, injuries played a pretty big part in that. I think they're primed again. They went out and got some they've got some players. So if that roster can gel together, I think they can be probably just as dangerous as anybody in the East offensively anyway. But Steve, I could see them getting in. I talked a lot about them. I was really high on them last year. And I still am, Steve. I think that they have a good shot this year as well. I really do.
On July the 1st, when free agency started, they signed 8 players on the day of free agency. So that is a good effort by management to try to fill in the roles here. Our boy Daniel Sprong amongst those players signed by Detroit. So he'll be wearing a Red Wings uniform this year. And for the most part, they're decent players, appear to be coming back for sure.
And you got to remember, Steve, that Stevie Yzerman is the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, and that's one of the bigger hockey names out there too. He knows what he's doing, and I think he's got a recipe that's going to spell out some success here in Detroit soon.
Shane Gostisbehere is another name on defense, so maybe he can lock it down a little bit better there on the backside. And protect the goalie a little bit better. That was one of Detroit's issues, was giving up goals last year.
Exactly. They gave up way too many, and it's hard to be successful when you do that. That's not a recipe that is going to take you very far. That's for sure. So, Steve, let's go ahead.
I'm just looking through the acquisitions and departures of everyone. It's just amazing about how many roster spots. You're talking about a complete facelift on a lot of these teams. Now, another team that is going to have a lot of continuity to them is the Minnesota Wild, it looks like. Now, they didn't make a big splash in free agency, but they have a good core. And, they played very, very hard there. Just not enough offense at the end of the day. They tried to they definitely addressed that, signing mostly centers and wingers in their offseason acquisitions. So the Wild in the West could be interesting as well. The team that looks like it has a ton of turnover, which you would expect, is going to be the Montreal Canadiens. So that's a team coming off a season in which they had a mass amount of injuries, a ridiculous amount. And they're going to start from scratch with this roster, basically, is what it looks like. I don't know, Dave. Who are maybe the one or two worst teams in this league? Maybe.
Well,
who are the teams that we can throw in the? Who are the teams that we can throw in the penalty box here?
I was just getting ready to say.
And I'll go ahead and cue that up for us. We haven't had that.
You're trying to switch 7 guys, Mike. Come on.
You can't do that. That was probably number 10. 2 minutes for
82, Tampa, tripping.
So absolutely the Canadians, they might be pretty bad again this year too. And the San Jose Sharks, Steve, I see some tough times ahead for that team, and I think those two will find themselves in the penalty box quite a bit here this season.
If I'm going to start with a team in the penalty box, who would be a team to pick on right off the bat? A team who didn't really make any kind of a splash in the offseason, and they really weren't that good, to be honest, or the St. Louis Blues. So I might look at them to be a bad team again, for sure. That might be someone worthy of picking on right off the bat, I will say.
Yeah, I could see that, Steve. Absolutely.
If you wanted a obscure one. Another team that's going to be interesting is Vancouver. Do you see anything from them this year? I mean, they are on the lower half of the totem pole in the West, and they could have an ugly season too, maybe.
They really could. I see them as maybe middle of the road. I think they've had some front office distractions there with player contracts. So I don't know how well that's going to work out for them. And Steve, honestly, they've been pretty quiet as far as I know. And like I said, I think their ceiling is probably middle of the road. I don't expect much from them at all this year.
All right. Yeah, so I would say this. I think your first lesson, people, is to pay attention closely to what these teams have on the ice, because there's just a ton of turnover and a mixed bag, really, right out of the gate. I don't know if that's going to be good offensively or defensively. Probably going to, I'm surely be a mix of both with whatever you have at goalie. But the 3 games tonight and then a full slate, it looks like tomorrow night. The key games tomorrow night. Well, we'll just go through them all. But Ottawa will be at Carolina. Montreal is at Toronto. Toronto, a huge favorite there. And Ottawa should be up a little bit maybe this year as well.
Yes, absolutely.
They apparently had a decent offseason. Blackhawks will play again tomorrow at Boston. Now, if Boston's that bad, they're minus 315 tomorrow against the Blackhawks, if that tells you anything. Winnipeg will be at Calgary, Edmonton at Vancouver, Colorado at the Kings, and then Thursday will be Detroit, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Columbus. Maybe look out for the Flyers. They need to, I mean, they look like they might be okay to start the season last year, but they went to the crapper really fast. Columbus as well. So those would be 2 teams to see if they can get off the mat early this season. Thursday, Rangers will be in Buffalo, Seattle and Nashville, Florida and Minnesota, Vegas, San Jose, and Arizona won't start until Friday. They'll be in New Jersey. Capitals won't start until Friday. They will host Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
How about Arizona? Arizona started to play a little bit better last year. Are you expecting better from them this year at least?
I hope so. I would like to see the Coyotes do kind of well for once. It would be nice. But Steve, I think they're another team that's probably middle of the road ceiling, to be honest with you.
Anaheim is picked second to last here in the Stanley Cup odds as well. So not expecting Anaheim to have a good season either. Them, the Blackhawks, San Jose, Montreal, all 200 to 1. Philadelphia, 150 to 1. Columbus, 100 to 1. Arizona, 100 to 1. Detroit, 70 to 1. Capitals, 70 to 1. Nashville, 70 to 1. Seattle, 50 to 1. Seattle's way down there at 50 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. They have them, they're mispriced. They have them ranked with St. Louis and Vancouver, and Ottawa is even better than Seattle on the odds. The Islanders are as well. Even Buffalo is. That's a little bit of a slap in the face to Seattle, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. I believe them to be better than being in the company of those teams, that's for sure.
So if you want to buy Seattle after their playoff season last year, if you want to buy them early, they got their best player back, I think. Barakowski, again, we mentioned him a lot. He was a goal-scoring machine before he got hurt and stayed out the whole season. But 50 to 1 would be a nice price to go ahead and get on Seattle right now, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, Steve, I certainly expect more than that. I mean, that's for sure. All right, Steve. Well, we went through the games, went through the matchups, a little futures action. You got anything you want to add?
No, we'll just see how it plays out. Everyone do your homework this first week, and I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a better angle on things next Tuesday, in which we'll have a full slate of games. And if we look at that real quick, let's just see what we have next Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a good one, I believe.
Let's see. Nope. Yeah, let me try to get back to that.
Lightning and the Sabres, a very good matchup that Tuesday.
Lightning and the Sabres. Yeah, of course my map is they're trying to take me to here we go. Next Tuesday, the 17th. Yes, huge slate of games. So Wild and Canadians, Canucks, Flyers, Lightning, Sabres, Coyotes, Islanders, Oilers, Predators, Kings, Jets, Avalanche, Kraken. Good game with the Stars and the Golden Knights. And then the Hurricanes out at San Jose. Give me the Carolina there. We haven't talked about them, Dave. You expect Carolina. You had them early last season to be your Eastern Conference winner. Where do they stack up this year?
Well, Steve, I think their chances just as good this year, maybe even better. I would expect them to be right up there fighting for it again. And actually, Steve, I think I would take them again.
And they're the favorite for the East at plus 500. I think the moral of the story is this. It's wide open. We got a lot of teams who can win the East, a lot of teams that can win the West. Some decent division prices out there as well already. If you want to do some preseason round robins to get things started. Long season ahead. Injuries will play out as well, and we'll see how it trickles down. Of course, we have an Olympic break in there too, Dave. That'll be something that we'll have to deal with down the road.
Right,
as well.
right. Yeah, right. Yeah, good to mention that.
Hopefully they don't bring back bud bugs.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, Steve.
All right.
Well, it looks like we have some homework to do. So we are, about 10 minutes to puck drop to open up the season. So let's go ahead and take a little dinner and get in front of the TV.
Yep. 5:20 p.m. Eastern time. Puck drops in 10 minutes. Enjoy it, everyone. Good luck.